So, hi everybody. We are here with Heal with the Real, and Heal with the Real is about looking at going from trauma to triumph. And it really started with my life journey where I did exactly that. And I ended up writing the book Fix Your Future, which for those, I don't know if you can see that, Fix Your Future was a memoir of my life and how I transformed. And so I am doing Heal with the Real, which is about ways that you can heal from trauma. And tonight's special guest, is Linda Barbour. And I would love you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do. And yeah, we'll go from there.
So thank you very much for having me, Amanda. I've listened to some of your podcasts and I just think it's amazing that the work that you're doing and getting the word out there about, how people can change their lives and that we can all move on from these things. So I work as a psychotherapist and a coach, and I've been doing it for 27 years.
Wow.
I took a couple of years off and started back again last year after I came out of my marriage. And now I'm specifically focusing on working with women who've come out of toxic and narcissistic relationships.
Okay. And was there something that led you up to being passionate about helping other women to come out of narcissistic and toxic relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I've got this really great story, because my ex was very passive and very covert. So on the outside, my life looked amazing. I had 2 healthy children. We lived on a small farm, so we were doing all the self-sufficiency bit. I had a horse that I'd always wanted. I was doing a job that I loved, and he was a very, he came across as being very mild and very kind person, and I look at the person I was when I got married. I came from having a big job and, being the woman who wanted to go and change the world, and somehow became this very withdrawn, very angry, frustrated woman. I just felt like I'd really lost myself.
And when because you've said that he was more of a covert narcissist, can you explain to listeners actually what a covert narcissist is? Because I've had a couple of very different relationships, and one of them was a covert narcissist. And like you say, it's really, really hard to spot that kind of a person. Can you tell our listeners what the signs would be if you were dating somebody who was a covert narcissist?
I think, like other narcissists, they're very self-absorbed, and they're very concerned with status and being better than you, and being seen as cleverer than, or just better than you. So they constantly put you down so that they feel better. They have no empathy, the same as other narcissists. But the problem is with more covert passive narcissists is what they don't do rather than what they do. And because they can often come across, I don't think mine was unique in that way, as being kind of nice people, quite gentle, quite easygoing kind of person, kind even, that you're always the one then who has the problem. It's what they don't do. It's that they don't buy you presents. They don't say thank you. They don't say sorry. They don't praise you or recognize you. They do a lot of ignoring and just not saying anything, that leaves you it just kind of chips and chips and chips away at it, because everything in itself, each bit is insignificant. When you say it out loud, it sounds petty almost a lot of the time, and people don't, oh yeah, my husband's like that. People don't really understand the hurt that goes with it. I think that's the thing. I think it's how you feel, isn't it? It's that everything gets very twisted in your mind, and you're blamed for everything, and they don't take responsibility for everything, and they're very good at it. I think particularly the passive ones are very good at kind of mirroring people and saying the right things at the right time to the right people. But like all narcissists, there's a real disconnect between what they say and what they do. And I think that's the other kind of crazy making thing, isn't it? They can say the right words in the right order, but somehow nothing ever changes.
What was the turning point? So you said that, it was just chipping away and chipping away. What was the point when you thought, I need to get away from this situation and I need to begin my own life again, and that realization? Because for me, sorry, I'm just turning my phone so it doesn't make another noise like it just did, so apologies everybody. What was that turning point for you? Because for me, it was the ghosting. The ghosting for 2 weeks and not knowing what to do, and like you mentioned, very, very clever. And from the outside, that person would look like he was, a great partner, and somebody that was loving and caring.
Yeah,
so what was the point for you that you thought, I need to move away, I need to get away, I need to build my life, rebuild my life again? For me,
I think there were points early on in the marriage where I thought, this isn't right, particularly after I had my first child. But I was a bit crazy hormonal, I think, and so I didn't really trust myself. Everybody's saying, oh, my husband's not very good at doing this, that, and the other. I thought, well, maybe it's just, he's adapting, and we're very quick to blame ourselves as well. But after about 10 years, I think I got completely burnt out. I got totally burnt out. And I started to get ill, physically ill. I got fibromyalgia, I got depressed. I just really wasn't very well at all. But we went to counselling, and and I thought, he's definitely on the spectrum. And I think that's the thing with the covert passive ones. You make lots of excuses for them, because it was me. I was the one who was ill. I was always the one who had the problems. I was always seen as being difficult, or I was the one who was being cross and shouting, or frustrated about things. He was actually fine. He really was fine. And so I think I did that. But eventually, I think as the children grew up and they were leaving home, and we were spending more time on our own, and like you say, he could not speak to me for days and days and days on end. And if I said anything, he would just deny it. He'd say, oh, I have been talking to you. Well, why would I say you're not talking to me if you have been? It's like having these stupid conversations. And I think it was that. I think I was really, I really hit rock bottom. I got quite suicidal for a while. And I just thought, I can't do this. I really can't do this anymore. So when my daughter, my second child, went to university, that's when I started saying to him, look, this isn't, I can't do this anymore. And just seeing, how he would respond and whether it would change. But it didn't.
Yeah. And so what was that point? You know, your daughter, did you say, has gone to university?
Yeah.
What was that point that you thought, you know, this isn't right anymore? I need to get away. I need to break free. I need to build my own life.
I think in that year, when my daughter went to university, it was my son's 21st, it was his graduation. An aunt who I was very close to died. There was just several things that happened in that year where I thought, you know, things could be better, you know, and that things were really definitely not right. I think when I went to my aunt's funeral, that was the day that I really thought, this is just awful. He was just horrible. And nobody noticed. Nobody noticed. And I think when I got back from the funeral up in Scotland, that was it. I just thought, I can't do this. I'm not doing this anymore.
And did you have close friends? Because I remember at the time not telling anybody because, you know, we're in lockdown here and, you know, I couldn't really go anywhere. And I didn't tell my friends. And after 2 weeks, I desperately needed to speak to somebody. So I did phone a really close friend and I went and stayed there for 2 days so I could get away, just to have time to think and what to do next, because I didn't know what to do next. How did you get away?
I cashed in a small pension I had, and went and rented somewhere for a while. And I took a couple of years off work just to really, I was really surprised when I left him. I thought I would be better. I really thought I would start to feel better.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after I left him that I really realised how damaged I had been. And then I felt, I'm a psychotherapist. I know all this stuff, you know, I see it so clearly in other people, and I've worked with it in other people. And I felt so annoyed and ashamed of myself that I hadn't realised this, and I put myself into this kind of situation and stayed in it for so long as well. So I think there was a kind of process of me coming to terms with all of that. And, you know, and I was fortunate enough that I could, you know, I did have this pension money that I could rent somewhere with. And then actually he did support me financially as well for a while. And I just really had to take some time out and really work out what had happened to me, because I didn't understand about passive covert narcissism. I hadn't really heard of it. I kind of understood it, but I didn't have that label, and I hadn't really seen him. But as soon as I read about it, it's like tick, 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 tick. This is him.
Yeah. And that is so true, because I was like, you know, this person's ghosting me for 2 weeks, and I was just like, what do I do? You know, I was in love with this person, deeply in love with this person, and I didn't see, like you, until I was out of the relationship and I was on my own, all these little red flags that you just don't notice. And you're always the last person to look after you, aren't you? You know, I was busy looking after everybody else and making sure everybody else, because the empath that I am, making sure everybody else is all right before yourself. And that's what that, you know, that is a sign, unfortunately. And yeah, I went online and I came across a coach actually who talked about narcissism, and I, like you, didn't have a clue about, you know, narcissists and what they were. And when she started speaking about it, something just rang true, and it just spiraled from my progression into transformation. Although I was in a really bad place, kind of started from there. So tell me about how you know, you're in a really bad place. How do you begin to recover?
I think, like you, I think starting to realize actually this isn't about me. You know, I think I'd spent so many years thinking I was the problem, and as you said, it. You know, I think, you know, when we're interested in self-development and we're committed to that kind of growth, I think I was just so quick to pick up and say, oh yeah, you know, I have got this issue. You know, maybe it is, you know, don't set boundaries. Maybe I am codependent. Maybe it is issues to do with my mother, whatever it was, and take it on as my stuff. And actually it wasn't. And I think as soon as I realized that, one of my clients actually says, oh, she said to me, so it's like my shit, your shit. And I thought that's such a good way, excuse my language, but I just thought that's such a good way of doing, of seeing it. You know, I think as soon as I saw, actually that's his stuff. And I, you know, and I obviously have issues because I got into that relationship and stayed in it for such a long time. As you said, being an empath, putting other people first. I think those kinds of issues really came to a head. You know, I think I was brought up, like a lot of women, to think that when everybody else is happy, you know, if the children are happy and my husband's happy and the cats are happy and everybody else is happy, then I'll be happy too. And I think that was a really, really big lesson I got, was that's not necessarily true. Everybody else was happy. Everybody else did think everything was okay.
Yeah.
And I was just exhausted and lost. And that was the other thing I used to say all the time. You know, if I had one word to sum up my marriage, it would have been lonely. I just felt really lonely. And I've heard a lot of other people say that.
Yeah.
A lot of other women say that it's very lonely because you don't talk to people about it, because what do you say? He's not talking to me. You know, you know, it's a hard thing to talk about. It's not like he's actually done something.
Yeah.
I can have a moan about this is what he's done. It's like it's what they don't do. And people just make excuses for him, and people still do it.
Wow.
My children have started to realise now, but up until then, you know, they would have definitely, you know, thought he was the nice one and I'm the shouty one. I'm the one who tells them off and makes them do things.
Yeah. I completely understand that. So talk me through your journey of recovery.
Yeah, I think that's why I went back into work in the end, because I think, you know, I did know some really good therapists, and I tried quite a number of different things, but I think because I hadn't realised, and I wasn't lucky enough to find somebody who understood narcissism and also the trauma bit of it.
Yeah.
I think I was very traumatised by it all. And I think that it's that combination of realising actually what I'm suffering from is, you know, is a form of PTSD, and it's not my responsibility how he is. You know, that relationship and how it was is not my fault as I thought it was. And I think that combination of then finding people who could help me with that was the, you know, was the steps that I took to get out of it. That makes sense.
Yeah, a complete sense. You know, I didn't realize that probably I was for a long, long time living with PTSD, and that is why I always was looking from on the outside for somebody to make me whole, and never looking from the inside, you know. And the realization that actually, you know, I was suffering hugely from PTSD, from what, you know, from my past, what I'd been through. And for me, doing the book, in fact, I started journaling in my recovery, and what my journaling turned into was my book. But what my book allowed me to do is really piece every part of my life together. and kind of look at all the different areas that brought me to where I was and why I wasn't attracting the right people into my life, first of all, because I just never loved myself properly, truly. You know, I had this feeling of that I was never good enough.
I think that's what I think that's at the bottom of all of it, isn't it? Is that feeling of, listen, I'm not good enough, I don't matter, I'm not important, you know, that sense of your worth, and you know, that there is something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I think I was so quick to take on, there is something wrong with me. And I think once I got out of that, then I could really move forward, because I think that blaming, you know, I blamed myself, and lots of other women do, you know, it's my fault for getting myself into this situation, and, you know, beating myself up about it. And it just keeps you stuck. It really kept me stuck for a long time. And I think it was coming out of that and really, you know, I use like that word acceptance, you know, really accepting what's happened in a genuinely accepting way, you know, not condoning it or saying that's great or anything like that, but just saying that's just how it is. And then I could move on.
Yeah, and giving that chance to kind of understand, you know, and put it in the past, but actually just forgive yourself for how you felt for such a long time is so important, isn't it? That self-forgiveness. And actually, I thank the people that have been in my life now. This is how I look at it. I thank them for being in my life because they've made me what I am now, which is a really strong, independent, confident person again, you know, and I would never have been like that had I not experienced the trauma that I experienced in my life. And it just changes your perspective on life.
Yeah.
Go on, sorry.
No, that's right. I can't remember what I was going to say.
Okay. Wait, so you are healing. What were the things that what helped you to heal? What did you do to heal?
Well, I think the first thing was learning about narcissism, recognizing what it was in me, you know, what I really had to work on, and, you know, what was him. And I think then, you know, forgiving myself. And then I think doing the trauma work for me was really, that really pushed me on, because I think, well, I know myself, when I work with people who are traumatized, you're just permanently living in the past. You're filtering everything through that. I'm not safe. This is about to happen, you know, feeling very fearful about everything place. Where I think doing the trauma work and putting that into the past then kind of really freed me up to move on. I think the other thing that I really struggled with as well for a long time was I just kept carrying him around in my head. You know, I could hear him. Everything I did, I could hear him, you know, criticizing me, don't tell me I'm not doing it properly. And that took me quite a long time to get rid of that. But once I've got rid of that, and I think it's the same with a lot of women, isn't it, that we carry those.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In our head. It's like you're still in the relationship, even though you're not anymore, because they're in your head. It is really
yeah. For a long time, you know, being told that you're fat, you're this, nobody will want you, you know, who's going to want you? It does stay, unfortunately. You know, you start to believe those things, don't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So you
And
did.
I think other people as well. I think a really important thing for me, there's only two or three people who I think really see him and understand what I say. And I think as soon as I stopped trying to convince other people as well, that for me was really kind of liberating, you know, that actually I can have my own truth, and whatever your opinion is, you know, even my solicitor, you know, he's very good. You know, even, you know, having my truth, you know, even if nobody else in the world agrees with me, this is my experience, and
Well,
this is
it's none of our business either, is it? What other
no,
people think, and that
no,
is my, that's how I think. If you've got a different opinion to me or to what went on, then that's your opinion, and it's none of my business. And that's how I can move forward in my
yeah,
own life, saying that, it's none of your business, it's none of my business what you think of me. And then I don't care.
yeah,
It's my truth, like you say. It's our truths, isn't it?
yeah, and wanting other people to understand it. You know, I spent hours, I think, trying to explain it to people who never got it, who
Yeah.
never understood it.
Yeah.
And I think the day I gave up doing that was a big day as well.
Yeah, definitely. So what other work did you do? Because there was for me, there was so many aspects of work that I had to do to recover.
Yeah. What else was there? I think there's that sense of finding yourself again. I think I felt very, very lost. I think I kind of lost my sense of reality, you know, like you're saying, just that sense of this is my truth and this is how I see the world. And I think that goes a lot with a lot of self-care and setting boundaries and all of that stuff. I think I had to work through that a lot because I don't think I'd just given up all of that stuff, because I would either be humiliated or, you know, ignored or belittled in some way, or, you know, that you just give up trying.
Yeah.
And I think the last thing for me was that kind of sense of helplessness, because it didn't matter what I did, nothing changed. And so you reach a point where you think, well, there's no point in trying to do things because there's no point.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that was the last thing to work through, was coming back into that sense of empowerment.
It was it was baby steps, I think, isn't it? And that's such an important thing to say, that, going back to what you said earlier, you said, I expected to have left him and things all of a sudden be okay again, but actually it wasn't. And for me, it was just those baby steps every single day, because I think that's what you've got to keep doing, haven't you? And building up that momentum to where that you feel all right again. And for me, it was about looking after my body. It was about the foods that I put in my my mouth. It was about telling myself that I was enough. So lots of positive affirmations in the mirror, which is really strange. I don't know if that's something that you practiced. Being able to look at yourself in the mirror, especially when you don't like yourself and you've got no self-belief, looking at yourself in the mirror and telling yourself that you are enough every day is a really difficult thing. But that really helped me. I mean, not everything helps everybody.
No, and that's why I work with people individually. I don't have a program. I do think we all go through a process, and that process, as you say, has lots of similarities for all of us, in terms of the issues that we need to deal with. But, what works for one doesn't necessarily work for another. And I think sometimes you can feel, oh yeah, and there's another thing I've done wrong, because saying affirmations or whatever it is didn't work for me personally.
Yeah.
And it's easy then to, and it's another thing to beat yourself up with, rather than, being curious and experimenting and, getting the right support. I think it's, and then the other thing for me definitely was, the divorce was a very long, drawn out, protracted process. And it wasn't until, and then I spent a year and a half living next door to him again. So it's not really some exquisite form of torture I invented for myself.
Oh dear.
But, it wasn't until I got really away and I didn't have contact with him, I didn't see him or hear him or know what he was doing,
And that's the important thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
No
That then
contact.
everything just becomes so much clearer and so much easier.
Yeah.
But I think lots, like you say, lots of things for me, exercise, as I said, I've got a horse, and I think being with the horse for me was really healing, being outside, and just being amongst people who saw me differently from him. I think I was so used to seeing myself through his eyes. I'd suddenly realised, and I think, oh, she really seems to like me, or oh, she thinks I'm funny, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She said it was all loads and loads of different things, and because everything is also interwoven, isn't it? And everything's so connected. One thing is connected to the next thing, to the next thing. I think, like you say, you don't always feel like you're making progress for a long time, but then you realize actually you are. At the end of last year, a coach I was working with said, did that exercise about what have you achieved in the last year. And I was so thinking, my business hasn't gone very well this year. It was okay, but it hasn't gone where I wanted it to. And I was thinking, actually, what I have achieved in this last year is huge.
Yeah.
Both the children are on their feet. I've moved house. I've sorted out finances, blah, blah, and it was, but you don't realize that, do you, until you look back, I think, sometimes.
And it's really easy to look at the things that we don't achieve, and that's the thing, isn't it? I did a vision board on Saturday, and we did an exercise where we wrote down all our achievements of 2021 and our disappointments. And actually, my disappointments were probably about 3 or 4 things.
Yeah, that's what I was like.
My achievements were huge, and I was just like, you're all right, actually, And it's like, we should, as a generation, celebrate more of what we achieve. And actually, when we do write them down and when we do look at them, it just makes such a difference, doesn't it?
And I think that's quite a female thing, isn't it, as well, is that we're not brought up. I certainly wasn't brought up, it's like, stay small, don't boast,
Yeah, little girls should be seen and not heard. That was kind of it. Yeah, that was a thing for me when I was a little. That's what I got told quite regularly. Little girls should be seen and not heard, and I think that's an older generational thing, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think, and like you say, it's just the way our mind is programmed anyway, isn't it? That we're always focusing on what we haven't done rather than what we have. So doing those exercises, I think, is really important, isn't it?
Really
to just realize how far we have come.
I used, one of the very first things that I used as part of my healing was meditation. And, I do a lot of that on a, morning and night. Even if I can just do 5 minutes on a morning, and often I'll just go to sleep with a meditation on, and it just sends me off to sleep. And actually you can, your subconscious takes all that in anyway if you're falling asleep with a meditation on, and it just relaxes me. And I think breathing is such breath work. We just underestimate it, don't we? We underestimate the power of the breath. And just taking that,
I did. Sorry, I was going to say I did the same. That was one of the things, just finding things on YouTube, and because I don't think I was in a place where I could just sort of meditate by myself. But there's such great stuff on YouTube that I found and listened to, and I really liked Esther Hicks stuff. I remember going through a lot of her stuff at one point.
And
I did as well. Meditation. Did you?
And the algorithm just throws it all up, doesn't it? And I did a lot of Abraham Hicks. Is that Esther?
Abraham Hicks? Yeah.
Esther. That's her name, though, isn't it? Esther. Yeah. Really good. Listen to a lot of her stuff. Actually, she talks a lot of sense.
Do you think I mean, I've always thought this, but I definitely feel it now, is that healing is definitely a spiritual experience, isn't it? The point at which we heal, I mean, it's obviously partly physical and mental, but it's also a spiritual place, isn't it, where we come into that sense of being, well, for me, being connected to ourselves and being connected to other people and being connected to the world around us in a healthy and, that kind of abundant way, rather than feeling. I think one of the things that happens when you're in these kind of narcissistic relationships is that we do get very disconnected from the good stuff around us.
I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree. It is that spiritual awakening, isn't it? Of understanding the mind, first of all. For me, that was a huge thing, understanding when I was in my subconscious or when I was in the now.
Yep.
And it's just in your subconscious, you're just doing the daily things on a daily basis that's already pre-programmed into our brains that from an early age, and we just repeat the same things over and over again. But when you start that realization of putting yourself into the now and the more using your frontal cortex, things just evolve and change and move forward for you. And I know now when I'm in my subconscious or when I'm in the, in the now and in using my frontal cortex, and it really does change,
It's that being intentional, isn't it, about things, and not
definitely
just getting carried along with things. I think that was one of the things I did. Definitely, I just went along with things because it was easier. And anyway, I would be wrong anyway. So, just go along with things.
Why not? Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big differences, as you said. It's just being really intentional, isn't it? And with my energy and my time and my everything.
Yeah, your focus, but it just living your life. Yeah, and living your life purposeful, I think.
Yeah.
Instead of just going along day in, day out, doing the same old. But yeah, and I am a big person of learning something new, really widening my brain so that I can learn more new things. I'm a big believer in learning something small, even if it's something small, on a daily basis, just learning something new, a new skill, even a new word or, anything that can just broaden your horizon.
And I think that stuff you were saying, I think that's really important as well, is that, really understanding why we do what I do, why we did what we did, and why we're getting those patterns, and really understanding where that comes from. I don't think we need to spend hours particularly delving into everything, but we definitely need to understand where that patterns come from. And I always think that, what brings anybody to work with me is the point where that stuff stops working for them, when it's clear this, because when we develop those, people-pleasing patterns, for example, that would have been a really healthy and, intelligent thing to be doing at one point. But obviously there was a point where it stopped working for me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of recognizing that, isn't it? This is an old pattern.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how much I try, how good I guess at people pleasing, it's not going to make me happy.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your work, because you've told us a little bit about how you've healed, and so tell us a little bit about what you do and your work you do with the ladies that you come to you for support.
I think because I've been doing this for a long time, and because I did a lot of short-term work and I've done a lot of trauma work in the past, what my kind of superpower is, what my thing is that I can work very quickly with people, because I think what all of that gives me, and I think my own personal experience as well, is actually this is where the problem is. And I think I'm very good at focusing and working on what that particular issue is, and finding what the deeper issue is. So starting with the foundations, because I really think once you understand that, where all that's come from, and then really helping people to change that and put different habits and different beliefs, and teaching them how to process their emotions and deal with your emotions, because I think a lot of it is that we don't process stuff, we hold it because we're not taught how to do that. So it's a lot about helping people to process stuff, because once you get rid of all the old stuff, and you can do that really quickly nowadays, because there's lots of really good techniques that I use, and obviously other people use, where you can really quickly get rid of the trauma out of your system. Somebody speaking to me the other day, and she said, a GP had told her she would have to be in therapy for 2 years, and it's just rubbish. It's just not true. I mean, I can work with people for a day, or if they want to work more gradually over 3 months, and do that work. It doesn't need to take months and years.
It doesn't. And you're right. If you give that person the tools and the techniques,
absolutely,
and the whys, and you're right what you say. It's what are those triggers? What were those triggers in the past that brought them to where they are now, that they didn't have that self-belief? And when I was writing my book, I go right back to childhood, and it talks about in my book about being told I was I wasn't I was a mistake as a child, even just something little like that you wouldn't really, I had a good childhood. My mum and dad were, fantastic parents. Dad was a bit grumpy, and but I love him to pieces. But when you're told that you maybe not, not wanted as a child, you were a mistake, and then
I was a mistake as well.
Yeah. And then going through school, I was bullied, in one of my years when I moved from one school to another. I was bullied in the first year of school, and it goes on and on to through my marriage of drug addiction, then moving, becoming clean in Millennium, to then moving straight into a domestic violent relationship, and then just never having any self-worth or self-belief in myself, and always accepting the wrong people into my life, and being able to just look back at all those things and piece together why I turned out like I did, but be able to heal from that and put it in the past has just been an incredible journey for me, really.
And I think doing it with somebody who can hold you emotionally, who can keep you safe and stop you from feeling worse, who can, not be judgmental, because we're so hard on ourselves, we're so quick to judge ourselves, and I think, working with somebody else as well, it's much quicker sometimes for those things to come into your awareness, those things that we have out of our awareness that we're holding in our subconscious, those beliefs, those beliefs we have about ourselves and who we are and what we deserve and what our place is in the world and all of that stuff. I think it's very hard sometimes to do that on your own. And I think trauma work's quite hard to do on your own as well, because of the nature of it, it's very easy to get overwhelmed. And then flip back into surviving, and just go through life. I'm getting through, I'm surviving.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm completely healed. I think it's a continuous journey. You're never fully healed ever, because there can be a situation that'll happen and instantly I'm brought back to that place again, and it could be something little that'll just trigger me again.
But I think what happens with people who work with me, and I guess people who work with you as well, is they'll know that's happened. They'll know that's happened, almost immediately, as you were saying. When it's happened, and how to get yourself back out of it.
Yeah.
So, rather than spending 3 weeks in that place of feeling very overwhelmed, or however it is you're depressed, or whatever it is you're feeling, that actually it lasts hours or a day maybe, because you know how to get yourself out of it. You know what's happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of the things people say to me is, they know, they recognize it's not that we're never going to get stressed again in our lives. We are, but we know when it's happened, and we know what to do about it.
Yeah, we learn how to deal with it when that situation arises, don't we? A lot more better than we ever did, because we're more self-aware, I guess, as well.
Yeah, we don't get ourselves into those situations so much.
Hopefully. And you have no time for that anymore,
No.
Did you find your a certain circle of friends changed at any point?
Yeah, I think I became very aware. It's funny, I was having a conversation about this with a friend of a client of mine who was talking about a friend of hers, and you just kind of become less tolerant. I think that doesn't sound very nice, does it? But
no, but it's true.
But I'm not. I don't make excuses for people anymore. I'm not necessarily confrontational about it. I just kind of withdraw from it, really. And people have just drifted out of my life. I think I don't have anything to prove anymore. I don't have, I don't have those one-sided relationships. I don't have this kind of need to have people in my life anymore. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. I always felt, oh, it's Friday, where are my friends? I need to find my friends. And now it's like, I'm happy being on my own. And that is important, isn't it?
It's really important.
Yeah.
I'm really happy.
I always needed my friends to be around or to have fun with, but actually I just have fun. Not it sounds a bit boring, doesn't it? But I do have fun on my own. I've got so many things that now keep me occupied.
Yeah, and you're interested in, and
and
people like this, meeting people like this. I mean, this is just lovely, isn't it? Talking to like-minded people who just get what you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah.
Rather than being with people who just don't get it.
Yeah.
Don't get what you're talking about, or are not interested really in it, or have got their own agendas going. I know we all have, but but I definitely. And I was surprised when I left. Some people were just brilliant and really supportive and great, and other people who I thought would be more supportive just weren't at all.
It's funny, isn't it?
Just disappeared.
Yeah, it's funny how it works like that. 'Cause you expect the people that you really expect to be that support network actually disappear, and then, but the thing is, people come into your life for different reasons, and that's how I look at it. They come into your life. What was the lesson that I learned from them coming into my life? And if they're not in my life, then that's their choice. I'm
like
still happy by whatever.
Yeah, I like that. See that they come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and I just think that's true, isn't it? That I'm not friends with people I knew when I was 20 or something. I am obviously have some old friends, but people I worked with that I was quite friendly with at the time. I can't even remember their names. I was thinking that today. I was thinking about this guy who used to think was really good, and I can't remember his name. But at the time he was quite an important person.
Yeah.
Apart from the fact he was my boss, but he was he was a really good guy. He was a really nice guy. But I don't know him anymore. But that doesn't mean he wasn't significant at that time, because he was.
Yeah.
He taught me a lot.
So tell us where we can find, how ladies can get hold of you if they need any support. Where are you? Do you have a name of the business, or does it go under your name? Just tell the listeners a little bit about that, because we're just about to wrap up the last few minutes.
Okay, so I'm mainly on Facebook at the moment these days. And I have a private Facebook group that every week I, do kind of podcast thing. We have a topic and we talk about it for 20 minutes, half an hour. Obviously, you can ask me questions. I put all sorts of resources in there. I do have a very old website, but I haven't done anything to it for about 2 years. It's really out of date, but there's some blogs on there that are useful. And obviously email me is linda@lindabarbour.co.uk. Quite an easy one to remember, I hope.
Great.
And I'm really happy to, I'm really like you. I don't want to do the hard sell thing. We're either the right people to work together or we're not.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy to, chat to people for half an hour or something, and just work out whether or not, we're a good fit for each other at this time.
Sure. And the right people will, like you say, you attract your tribe, don't you? The right people will come. They either will get you and think, yeah, that's the person that I need a bit of help from and support.
Yeah.
I've really, really enjoyed talking to you. It's been really lovely, Linda.
Likewise.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast. This has been Heal with the Real, and I think you're episode 2 of series 2. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I've really enjoyed chatting with you, and you're a like-minded soul, which is awesome. So just want to say a huge thanks for being on the podcast with me tonight. I've just enjoyed every minute.
Thank you very much as well.
Thank you.